What's up guys, it's me Lumos Theromax, and today I actually have a comment I'd like to respond to from an OG member of the Theromax core known as Gravity Titan. He's been around for a minute, always comments some pretty sick stuff, and he has the question of, hey, I heard the Green Lanterns were basically unaffected by the New 52 reboot, so I was wondering if you could make a video explaining this. And here it is. I figured I'd actually give some time in responding to this and not just make this a short video, because it is something worth considering. So sit back, grab your hot chocolates, and listen to good old Lumos explain some shit out for you. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. Well, share it to your friends if they're big GL fans too. So to answer this question of what exactly is going on with the Green Lanterns surviving the reboot of the New 52 when everyone else like Superman and Wonder Woman had their characters almost completely changed to something very different than what it was before, we have a variety of things that we need to discuss. So first off, it actually wasn't just Green Lantern that managed to survive the retcon of the New 52. It was actually also Batman as well. And the reason why was Geoff Johns was writing a very long form story within the context of Green Lantern, but you also had Grant Morrison writing a very long form grandiose story on Batman. And so these characters, an out-of-verse explanation would be these characters were just, and their story arcs were ongoing, and the reboot came at kind of like a weird time in the middle of that story, but they were selling so well the companies didn't want to get rid of them. That was something that even the fucking bigwigs at DC weren't dumb enough to like actually try and stop. So the out-of-verse explanation is basically the stories were too good, they were selling too well, so there was no way they were actually going to stop them. Now, obviously you can't consider that for the inverse explanation, and when it comes to the inverse explanation, things get a little bit more complicated, because there's basically two branches of thought that you can go whenever it comes to the inverse explanation. And the first one is, well, it's technically a new reality, and the story just kind of starts here. But the problem with that is that at the end of the 2005 run, you literally have a point in time where Hal Jordan basically kills Krona, he pisses off all the Guardians, and after doing that, the Guardians strip him of his ring, Sinestro gets a green ring, and they banish Hal Jordan to Earth, and from the Lantern Corps in general, because he killed a Guardian. That's a big no-no to them. Now, during the New 52, in issue 0, we get Simon Baz's origin, and we start off with some weird stuff with Sinestro and Hal in some sort of black dimension, which we later find out is the Dead Zone. And then in issue 1, we actually pick up with Sinestro, and it's exactly where we left off. Like literally, it's the exact same point. So very clearly are they continuing that story 100%. Sinestro shows up to Hal Jordan, says, yo, if you want your ring back, you're gonna do everything that I'm gonna tell you. And that's exactly how the story goes from that point on. And you think, well, maybe that's something that is just like Green Lantern exclusive, right? Well, not quite. In one of my most popular shorts that everyone wiles about in the comments, or during the events of Forever Evil is probably a better way to put it, we actually have an instance of even Batman reflecting on events that happened within the Green Lantern mythos that are still canonized within the New 52. He directly references the Sinestro Corps War, which is where he got his yellow ring that he used for his garbage-ass prep time against Power Ring. So very clearly do these stories continue on within the confines of the New 52. Now, the original Justice League solo run, which is kind of like the origins of the characters meeting each other for the first time, canonically has to take place before any of the events of like the Geoff Johns run. So this would technically be like a new interpretation of that origin story. They're basically saying, even if this is a new reality, everything that happened in the Geoff Johns runs of Green Lantern, just like everything that happened within the Grant Morrison runs of Batman, are still canon 100%. There's just a time gap in between that Justice League series and the rest of everything else for like the Geoff Johns content, which is where a lot of the characters' missing origins come from, essentially. So personally, I take it as you just gotta look at it as all of these things happened within like a 2 to 5 year gap, which is, I believe, exactly the time frame we're given for Batman within the confines of in between that Justice League run, and of course where we pick up with things later on down the road in the New 52. So there's your explanation, guys. I'm sorry it's not clear. I wish DC would have been clear about it, but whenever companies buy out different comic book publishers and stuff like that, they just demand changes, and so things like this just pop up out of nowhere, and it does get a little bit weird. It does get a little bit convoluted. But pretty much everyone else's stories were changed. Just Batman and Green Lantern survived that reboot, and everything that happened from 2005 for both of them is still canonical, 100%. That being said, be sure to like and subscribe, and if you guys have any more really good questions, I'd love to respond to them. Big shout outs to my boy Gravity Titan for the question, and as always, later Lanterns.